But when he came to himself, he said, How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will arise and go to my father, and will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. The Prodigal Son. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Rebuild Africa, the podcast where we talk about issues related to development across the African continent, with the goal of finding practical solutions and actionable strategies to drive the growth of motherland Africa. I am Wole Adeoye, your host. Today's episode of the podcast is going to be the first of a three-part mini-series on the title Passion, Purpose and Plans. Passion, Purpose and Plans, of course, as it relates to the development of Africa. Now, let's take a look at some of the definitions of passion from the dictionary. There's a definition or some definitions that say passion is a strong desire or a strong love. Strong desire or strong love, an extravagant fondness, enthusiasm or desire for anything. Strong desire or strong love, and then extravagant fondness, extravagant enthusiasm, or extravagant desire for anything. And then there is another definition, another perspective of that definition of passion, taken from the original Greek root of that word, which is to suffer, or the willingness to suffer for anything. To suffer, or the willingness to suffer for something. Now, for the purpose of this podcast, I will be describing passion as the will to do. The will to do. That is, the will to do something, the will to accomplish something, the will to become, the will to make something happen. So if you look at the previous or the initial definitions that I gave, of course, now from the dictionary, you will see that the bottom line of these definitions of passion is actually the willingness to do something. A strong love, a strong desire that makes you want to do something, and an extravagant, fondness, extravagant enthusiasm, extravagant desire. When you have all this in place, definitely it will bolster your will to go after whatever it is that you want. And this is the definition I want us to work with this morning as we look at the passion of Africans for Africa. And if you permit me, I would like to take your permission to ask this question, to you, my listener. From the definitions of the word passion, do you think that you have passion enough to bring about the desired change for Africa? Are you passionate about Africa? It's a question I want every one of us, to ask ourselves. Are we passionate about Africa? Do we think we have strong enough desire for Africa? And this is so important because, this is a podcast where we want to talk about solutions, practical solutions to the challenges of Africa, and then we want to look at strategies that are actionable, strategies that we can put into action immediately to begin to see the change that we desire for Africa, or for our nations, for the different countries, that make up Africa. But the truth of the matter is that it doesn't matter the actions or the solutions available to anyone. It doesn't matter the strategies at your disposal. If you don't have a strong enough will, a strong enough desire, which is passion, to pursue anything, all the solutions and all the strategies will come to nothing. It doesn't matter the amount of ammunition and the sophistication of the equipment that you give to the army of a nation, if the people are not willing to go to war, of course, that nation has lost the war already. So the will to do precedes the doing. The will to act must precede the action. If you want to talk to, if you want to talk to someone, if you are a marketer, for example, and you want to go out and market your product, if you don't have a strong enough desire, enough conviction that you want to do this thing, you just stand up and you do it grudgingly because someone has forced you to do it, because that is where you make, your daily living, you have lost before you even, started that journey. Because wherever you go, the people to whom you are marketing, they will feel that something inside of you. The energy will not be there. The conviction will not be in your voice. They will not want to do business with you. So that is why they say that in marketing, or when you want to sell yourself, you must be convincing enough. You must first of all convince yourself that what you want to market, has enough value for the customer before the customer will be willing to buy from you. And it is the same thing, with the destiny of a nation. If the people, the citizens of those countries, and we are talking about Africa now, if the citizens of the different countries that make up Africa, if they are not passionate enough about changing Africa, it doesn't matter the discussion, it doesn't matter the strategies, it doesn't matter the solutions, the people will not be able to change that country. Don't forget that it is the people that make up a nation. It is the people that make up a continent. When you say Africa this, Africa that, you are really not talking about Africa. Africa is just a name. It is the people in Africa, the citizens of the countries of Africa that make up Africa. They are the real players. They are the real players, the true players, in whatever change that we want for Africa. And if those people are not willing to play that game, if the people are not passionate enough about the game, if they do not believe in themselves that they can do this, and then they summon the courage, to say, we are going to do this, I am telling you, there is nothing that can happen to that continent. Now, if you look at the story of the prodigal son from the Bible that I gave as the intro to this podcast, to the episode today, it is a story that many of us are familiar with, irrespective of our religion or faith. The prodigal son, some really approached his father and said, give me my own inheritance. He was the younger of two brothers, and the father obliged him. He took his own, his own inheritance from his father, traveled to a country far away from home, and then he lavished, this inheritance in extravagant living. And then he became broke. And of course, being broke led to brokenness. No money, no friends, nothing again. And so he became so poor that he had to take a job, taking care of pigs. And he had to steal from the portion of the ration of the meal of the pigs to be able to sustain himself. But one day, he came to himself. And I like how the Bible puts that. He said he came to himself. He came to himself. He discovered himself. And he said to himself, look, how many of my father's servants are there? I remember home. So many of these servants, they are living fine. My father is taking care of them. They are not hungry. They are okay, even though they are servants. And yet here I am, the son of the man. His father was a wealthy man, of course. The son of the man taking care of so many servants. I have no food. I am living this life, this beggarly life. He said, enough is enough. Then he must have thought, what is it that I must do to change my situation? He thought about it, and he came to the conclusion that the best thing was to go back home where he was loved, where at least now he said to himself, I will arise. I will go to my father. I will say to him, I will. Passion from within. I will change my situation by rising up, by going to my father, by saying to him, And of course, if you have, if you know that story to the end, you discover that the father saw him from a way off, from a way off, and he ran towards him, embraced him, took him home. He killed the fattened calf, and he threw a party for this young man because of his love. Of course, that passage in the story, that parable in the Bible was used, was told by Jesus to talk about the love of God for humanity and how God will meet anyone halfway who is willing to return to God. Now, you related this to Africa. Africans, and I'm sorry to say this, but Africans for long have been living like that prodigal son. We have been living that life, that life of the prodigal son. It's as if we all of us we wanted to take our inheritance in a way, and then we were willing to to squander that inheritance. That is what you see with leaders who steal from the people and put the money that should have been, that should have been used, to provide good healthcare system for the people, to provide quality education, to provide, to make life easy and pleasant for the citizens of the country. They take this money and some of them bury this money in soccer ways. Some of them buried, they keep this money they build a house. That recently there was a story of someone in Nigeria who built a house, put so much money in that house, and was paying someone, a relative, I think 10,000 naira a month to keep that house, without that one having the knowledge of what was actually, what it was actually. He just thought it was, being given money to stay in the house so that the house will not just be vacant, not knowing that it was actually, in charge of hundreds of millions of stolen money, probably I think in dollars or something. And so this tells you about how we have been living. And even for the vast majority of Nigerians, those who are not leaders, everyone seems to be, just to be rushing to have a piece of the national cake, as we say, to squander, to that. Of course, there are so many reasons, that people have put forward for this. But the conclusion of it is that everyone is raping Africa. And then we turn around to complain about the situation of Africa. And the problem, the main problem is that Africans are not passionate enough about Africans. Very quickly, look at what happened in America in the recent past. The issue of police brutality. It at the time it was a global issue, but especially in America because it seemed to be targeted at Black Americans, at African Americans. And there, so many people being killed, and when the Black Americans, especially through the Black Lives Matter movement, decided, they became passionate enough and they developed the will to do something. They started a movement that became a global movement. And as a consequence of that, I was reading or I was listening to something about it, and I discovered that majority of teachers in America now have agreed that the curriculum should be altered. The school curriculum in America should be altered, in favor of some of the requests of the Black Lives Matter movement. And so many other things are happening. And then you see that some of the officers, that were involved in these killings have been arrested. They have been, and actions have been taken against them. This is what happens when a people have the will, to fight for their rights, when people have the will to do what is right for themselves. And so this is very, very important. Like I said before, if we don't have the will, I saw something, I think it was a cartoon or something, not too long ago, of a guy on a bed, of a cartoon, the cartoon of a man lying on the bed, and someone was saying, if you are not going to get off the bed, stop praying to God to order your way or something, something like that. So there is no point asking God, Lord, please order my steps today, when you're not willing to even come down from your bed. If we are not going to take the steps to make Africa work, there is no point talking about the problems. There is no point talking about, the solutions. This is so important for every one of us to know. And this is an encouragement to the audience of this podcast, because I believe we are a family of people who are willing. I started this podcast because I was and I'm still willing to do something, to make Africa better. And I believe you are listening to this because you are willing to do something. And I'm just saying this to encourage you, to let you know that we must have this passion, but we must understand that passion is a two-edged sword, so to say. Just as you must be passionate to fight the enemy without, the enemy that is that is threatening your well-being, the external enemy, you must be willing to fight the enemy within. What I mean by this is we talk about the leaders, we talk about corruption, we talk about corrupt police officers, but what about corruption as citizens ourselves, the so-called common man who goes late to work, who gets paid every month but refuses to give his best at his place of work? What about the drivers? What about, and I'm not talking about commercial drivers now, I'm talking about every one of us who drives on the streets on our streets, driving recklessly, ignoring the traffic lights, throwing dirt on the highways. These are all forms of corruption and indiscipline that it is part of a whole that culminates to what we call African problems. So if we want our leaders to stop, we must also be willing to stop. We must have the will and the willingness to do what is right. There is a secret that we need to understand. If you are willing to change yourself, you will find the will to change others. Now, you know what they say. Don't try to change others. Only try to change yourself. And you will see that the world will change for you. And that is the truth. The reason, if you live in Nigeria, or even if you are reading from anywhere, you must have seen the tweet and the stories around a former presidential candidate, Sowore, and then a Nigerian musician, a world star in Burna Boy, where Sowore was inviting Burna Boy to join in a protest that he was organizing an October 1st protest. And he was asking the musician, since the musician have been likened all over the world to the late, the legend Fela Anikulapo Kuti, and he was inviting him to join him, and that one was saying he was not willing. And along the line, the musician had to come out and say, I am not Fela. And you can see the stories around that. I'm not taking sides, I'm not condemning. I'm just saying things like this. When you listen to what people say, it boils down to one thing. The fact that everybody talks about the problem, but nobody is willing to solve the problem. Nobody is willing to do the right thing. Everyone complains about what their bosses are doing. They complain about how those in high public offices are stealing. But everyone complaining is just waiting for the opportunity to get to that place and steal their own. So people seem to be complaining when they are not the one doing the stealing. People seem to be complaining when they are not the one doing the oppression. And this is not serving anybody. It's not serving the purpose of rebuilding Africa. So for those of you listening to me, it is important that we make up our mind, that we find within us this passion for Africa. It is the first thing. It is the beginning of everything. Anything that you start where there is no passion, you will not be able to compete. It is passion before action. It is the will to do what is right. It is the willingness to commit yourself to whatever it takes before you embark on any journey. Because the road to rebuilding a nation is not an easy road. Nelson Mandela said, no easy road to freedom. If you are not willing to pay that price, do not even begin that journey, because you will quit along the line and it will be worse for you than the beginning, because somehow you find yourself in the middle of nowhere. If you start and then in the middle of the way you are just there hanging, it will even be worse than where you were before. So there is no easy road. The only thing that will enable us to go this journey, to go to to travel the length of this arduous journey, is our passion for Africa. Now I'm encouraging every one of us today to develop this passion, to find it within us. It is within us. The love of a nation is in the citizens of his people. It is within us. We must not allow what we have seen around us, the discouragement of the past, everything that is happening, the threat even from government, to stop us from developing within us this passion that lies within, and bringing it to the fore in our fight for the future of our continent. We must be willing to pay the price. When we are willing to pay the price, each one of us, like I said, first of all, with ourselves, fighting and winning the battle with ourselves, knowing that we cannot condemn others when we ourselves are doing the very thing that we are speaking against. That it will be hypocritical of us to say Nigeria, our leaders are corrupt, when we ourselves are corrupt at whatever level that we are in. So first of all, we must be willing to play our part to win the battle over ourselves. And after that, you will see that we will find the courage. We will find, because now we will have the moral confidence to speak against and then to rise against whatever it is that is threatening our well-being in our own continent, in our own countries. I encourage you today to search within yourself. Tell yourself that you need this passion. You need to be passionate about the development of Africa. You need to develop the strong will, that extravagant desire that will not allow you to keep quiet, that will not allow you to sleep at night, that will not allow you to... I am saying this because, see, I talk about Africa. Every opportunity that I have, I see people looking at me in a way when I say I intend not to steal. I intend not to be a part of the corruption, not to take something that belongs to other people. See, people look at me in a way. These are the same people who complain about the problems that we have, and yet they are part of the problem. I see how people, you see the hatred in the way people look at you when I talk about favoritism and nepotism, and how a group of people cannot continue, to lord it over other groups. That no matter the number, no matter how small the number of a group, if a person is only one person from an ethnic group that is in your organization, that person deserves the respect that everybody else has. And when I talk about these things, these people look at me like I should go and join a group. And I always say I don't belong to any group. It is only that group that is forward-looking, that group that is interested in the good of everyone and the good of the nation and the good of the continent. That is the group that I belong to. I'm a Christian, but I will not join a group of Christians who will, in the name of Christianity, destroy my country. I will not join that movement. I'm a Yoruba man, but I will not, in the name of ethnicity, join a group of people that will destroy my nation. No, I will not. If each of one of us can get to this point, from wherever tribe we are, from wherever faith we belong to, if we can think of what is right for everyone, the good of the nation, the good of the continent, above and beyond the good of the person or the group, you will see that we will be able to fight and to conquer, in this battle for the rebuilding of Africa, because it's a battle. There are so many forces who do not want this, whatever nation, there are people who don't want it to work because of their own selfish gains. For those of us who want it to work, we must first of all be able to tame our own demons so that we can fight the demons that others are using to threaten us. And this is the discussion for today. And I want to encourage us, every one of us listening to this, I would like to encourage us, to please subscribe. This is the will I'm talking about. It is part of it, no matter how small it is. Please be passionate enough about this podcast, if you believe in what I'm doing, to share it with your friends. talk about it with people, start discussions about the development of Africa. Do what you can to ensure that, you are taking Africa in the right direction, no matter how small it is. Let each and every one of us contribute something. Develop the will to say no to what is not right. Develop the will to say yes to what is good for everyone. Share this podcast with your friend. Subscribe. Send me messages, voice messages, emails. Let's talk about what we are doing here so that it doesn't feel like I'm the only one doing it. Thank you for listening. And on the next episode, we are going to continue with the topic, passion, purpose, and plans. Thank you very much for listening this week. And God's willing, I'll see you next week. Thank you, and God bless.